Well, hello and welcome to The Faith Perspective here on Catholic SG Radio. I'm Andrea Chung and she's Beatrice de Cruz. And The Faith Perspective actually gives us an opportunity to talk about things that are really trending both in the world and in the church.
Yes, and you know what's trending? International Women's Day. So in light of this year's theme of International Women's Day, which is Inspire Inclusion, we were also inspired by Pope St. John Paul II letter to women in 1995, where he reminds us how, in spite of the different vocations and missions we have, Christ invites us to use our talents as women to make the world a better place. And that's the feminine genius coined by Pope St. John Paul II.
Don't worry, I'm not feeling outnumbered at all. Not at all. Today on Catholic SG Radio, of course, we're very happy to turn the spotlight on two women who will be sharing their experiences as women of faith and women dedicated to the service of God. And so we welcome Sister Fiona Mary Yo. She's an RGS sister, a religious of the Good Shepherd sister, whose mission work is primarily focused on women and girls. And I've known the Good Shepherd Sisters for many, many years, and the wonderful work that you all do with women and children, and with mothers who are pregnant with unwanted children, all that sort of stuff. So thank you so much, Sister, for being with us. Sister Fiona joined the convent before, but before that, she was actually a social worker?
Yeah.
Right? So she was really now gone into doing the work that she loved. That was her first love, I suppose, but now Jesus, being her first love, is now her permanent groom, so to speak. I want to also introduce to you Shirley Lee. Shirley is Executive Director of the Catholic Family Life, and she's been ED since November 2020.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and she's happily married. She has two sons. Both are working now. And so I'm going to start with you, Shirley, actually. Okay. Yes. Just share with us a little bit about yourself and with our listeners and viewers. Before you took up this role, right, what were you doing?
Work-wise, I grew up actually in the financial services industry. Was very blessed to have been given a lot of opportunities to work and also lead in the front line as well as backroom operations. So kind of what you call general management train. So I kind of did that for a very long time. Yeah, and my last role was actually Executive General Manager for People and Culture. For Asia, for one of the largest general insurance group actually in Australia and New Zealand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
I left the corporate role as a result of the group's divestment from Asia. So at that point, I thought maybe I couldn't be a full-time traveler, just travel. But at the same time, really just wanted to be available for God to kind of let Him lead me to wherever He thinks I can go, to use my skills and experience. So I help out in a few places, including a charity, and also was part of the organizing team of the Catholic 200 SG.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it has been actually really very edifying,
Right.
to have journeyed in that sense in the corporate world, learned a lot of things from there, and now with the church, making use of my experience and skills, whatever little that may be.
How different is it, working in corporate world and then now for church?
I think the environment can be quite different. But then there are also a lot of things that are similar.
Right.
In the sense that, you have got things that you really want to do and to achieve, because those corporate world is kind of like, whatever that they have in terms of what they needed to achieve. But in the church, at the end of the day, we're serving the Lord and His people. So there will still be things that we want to be able to do and to achieve in that sense. We are guided by our mission.
Yeah.
So there is a sense of purpose in everything we do.
I like what you said. You said making yourself available to God. I think that's wonderful, actually. A lot of people work in the church, but sometimes they forget about being available to God. You get so entrenched in the work itself. Sometimes God is lost for a little while.
Yeah, I suppose it can happen. For me, I guess it's a case where I'm not a creator Catholic, so I got convert, right? And in some way, there are two things that guide me. One is the prayer of St. Francis, which is about making, a channel of the peace. And then the other one is actually this very little short verse in the Bible that says, Jesus must increase and I must decrease. So, in that sense, like, I think you don't need a lot of what you call guiding principles and mottos and everything. Right. Just simple things that you follow truly in your heart. Yep.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I love those two prayers.
Yeah.
And speaking of mission work, we also have to ask Sister Fiona, could you share with us what your mission work is and how the religions of the Good Shepherd Sisters are, primarily focused with women and children?
So the mission of the Good Shepherd is really healing and reconciliation, and our charism, meaning the gift of the Holy Spirit to each congregation, is merciful love, right? So Good Shepherd, it always brings up the passage about like that 99 sheep and that one lost sheep. So who are like the one lost sheep in our society that we are focused on? It's really the vulnerable women and children, where which Pope Francis called those at the peripheries. They're not in, So we do shelter work with women who are trafficked, women and children who undergo domestic violence in their house. And it's really one of those works that if you don't want to see, you can live your life as it is without ever encountering one.
Absolutely.
But if you choose to see, if you choose, as Pope Francis says, he wants a church that goes out, right? If we choose to go out in the peripheries, there are a lot to do. And, So we do, we work with survivors of human trafficking, domestic violence, survivors of domestic violence, single mothers with no family support, and children who are survivors of family abuse. With the recommendation of the social workers and the child protection officers, we provide shelter for the women and children to stay with us, while the social workers and child protection officers sort out safety issues at home, so that it's safe for them to return home. Yeah, as you can tell, these are when when safety issues have already been breached. But we also do preventive work, such as student care. And in terms of education, we have a primary school called Marymount Convent School and two preschool called Marymount Preschool and Good Shepherd Preschool.
Sister, you were already a social worker before you joined the convent. You could have just stayed as a social worker. But what made you think of taking on the habit?
Wow, I mean, the call is really a long story, but I mean, if you're asking what's the difference, right?
Okay.
What's the difference? I always tell my colleagues, it's easy to be a shepherd, not easy to be a good shepherd. I think as a social worker, I'm always proud to say I felt like I was trained under one of Singapore's best. So I felt confident as a social worker.
Right.
But when I became a sister, and walking through my own interior journey, my own journey of healing and reconciliation, I felt I became so much more human in the journey. And last time it was like, okay, these are the steps to take. But now, the human dynamics is really one step forward and two steps back, right? It's just human to human journeying. Yeah, I found that was the change in me, the human to human journeying, rather than let's fix the problem, let's increase the social functioning. I mean, it's both and. Yeah, I realize it's both and.
And that's what I meant, earlier on. We sometimes we get so caught up in what we are doing, and the human side of work gets thrown out, even though we might be doing actually good work, right? And I thank you for sharing that. I think very often we can be good, but how can we be a good shepherd, right?
Yeah, I mean, Henry Nouwen says, sometimes he can get so caught up in talking about God, he doesn't talk to God, right?
Absolutely.
Right, so my work can really be work, or it can really be a ministry where we just take time out and we really have to pray for the women and children. That's why I really love my community. Even though there might be a lot of elderly, they would always really ask, like, how's the kids today? How can we pray for you? Like, how can we pray for the kids? Or like, how's the kid you told us to pray for? And it's just makes it different.
It's beautiful, right, to have a community that that you can rely on, and they're praying for you, and they're praying for whoever you're looking after as well. That's the beauty of it.
So it's not so much like, as retired, they might not be able to do things, right? Like you say, do things. But that sometimes just praying for the children, or sometimes just the children requesting to just sit with a sister. Some of them, with consent from their parents and all that, they just want to like be heard and be prayed for physically. And that was such a beautiful thing, I thought.
Now, just in December 2023, you professed your perpetual vows. How did you prepare for that, very special moment? Can you share with us that?
My formation journey is about 9.5 years. So, of course, the discernment was not just one day, it was throughout the 9.5 years, right? Sometimes thinking, am I really going to do this for the rest of my life? It's so crazy. You don't see young sisters around. Like, could I really do this? Not being a sister, right? So there was a lot of discernment already, but like we don't take it for granted. Like every year, we have to go write in to the province leader that we would like to take another year. I've prayed and I've discerned and I'd like to take another year. And there's a lot of, we have to do self-assessment. Our community does a growth assessment with us. Leadership does an assessment with us. And when the time came, I really took a lot of time to look at the past 9.5 years. And before I was a sister, after and I was a sister. And, in our convent wall, there's this wall that says, I have come so that you can have life to the full, right? John 10:10. And I kept, pondering in my discernment, what does life to the full mean in my context, right?
Yeah.
Or really just doing a timeline of and all the significant events. And I realized how much I've grown and how God was so faithful. And additionally, after I've written in to the province leader and all the assessment have been done, written to the congregation leader, I've also been blessed with 2 months of preparation in India. That was my preparation.
Wow, 2 months. But then, many people don't realize that in religious life, you take your temporary vows and then you renew them. And then, so this 10-year culmination is actually a whole lot of, really, as you said, discernment and prayer, growth, counseling, and also support from people who are around you, from your own sisters in your own community.
Sure.
Yeah.
And also a lot of, as of all walks of life, a lot of difficult times. Yeah. We always say growth can happen in comfort zone, but transformation is usually in difficult times, right? Usually when you're forced out of your comfort zone. Yeah.
What did your family think when you went in?
Well, they did not take it well. Understandably, they thought, my mom thought I was young and idealistic and wanted to save the world. And what happens when it's
the messianic side of you, right?
What happens, later when reality hits.
Yeah.
So they were really, really not for it, upset to say the least. But it took them, honestly. It took a lot of time. As Pope Francis says, right, time is more important than space. Time for them to see that was settled.
Right.
And it took them Marian miracles, right? I had experienced Marian miracles related to the acceptance of my parents, related to me really falling more in love with the 2 mothers of my life. Which is why on my final vows, my only request was that it can be on a Marian feast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And, speaking of family, Shirley, you are working with families as well. But I want to know a little bit more about, what are the things about family that are closest to your heart? And what is it that you hope to see in families, in the church?
Okay, I always say this to my team members, right? Everyone is actually born into a family. And it's really the state of the family that helps this person, the influence how this person will eventually take in terms of the path forward. So the state of the family is important, the emotional, the physical environment, and all this, how they actually can help nurture and support and even care for individuals. So these are, to me, very important. And there's really no standard formula, as all of us are actually different. And so the need for everyone is actually different. I just really hope that everyone has the opportunity to get that, that nurturing, the support and the care that they need. And actually that's also very much the mission of CFL, which is Catholic Family Life, because we really strive to form, empower and restore individuals and families. So those are the things that's really close to my heart. Yeah. Every family will have a struggle, right?
Yeah.
So
Francis says there's no perfect family.
Yeah. And as what sisters say, and the transformation comes actually when you go through a challenge, So that itself is important, and families that experience difficulties and all that, how do we and how does the church then come together to actually support, all these people? I think that would be something that I wake up to do every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, dear sisters and brothers. If you've just joined us, welcome to the Faith Perspective here on Catholic SG Radio. Today we're very blessed to have Sister Fiona Mary Yo. Why am I calling you Marie? She is a religious of the Good Shepherd Sister, whose mission work is to care for troubled teenagers and women. And Shirley Lee has been with us for some time now, and she's the Executive Director for Catholic Family Life since November 2020.
Yes, so today we're, inspired by Pope St. John Paul II's letter to women in 1995, but also because of International Women's Day. So we can't forget our dearest mother, right? When we think of, celebrating the gift of women. So, Sister Fiona, let's refer to paragraph 10 of Pope St. John Paul's II letter to women, where he mentions the Church sees in Mary as the highest expression of the feminine genius, and the Church finds in her a source of constant inspiration. So I was wondering, how would you say Mary has mothered you and inspired you? Because you also mentioned about, the Marian, miracles that you have experienced in your life. So how has Mary inspired you in living out your identity as a daughter of Christ, and also in your vocation in religious life?
In terms of religious life, the Good Shepherd has a special devotion to the heart of Jesus and Mary. Like our symbol, if you see two hearts, it's the heart of Jesus and Mary. So she plays an important role to us, the Good Shepherd, but personally, the daughter part, the daughterhood of Christ, Mary played a huge role. As I mentioned before, my parents were understandably not in favor of my vocation, that they could not understand. Sister always reminds me, God called me, not my parents, right? And it was particularly hard for my mother, who was worried that I was going to do this because I was young, impulsive, and idealistic, that I might regret when I'm older. So I started to ask many of my friends' mother to pray for my mother. And when I've exhausted the list, I thought, the perfect mother, why not? So I just, at that time, to be honest, I didn't have the best relationship with Mother Mary. So I started praying the rosary every day, right? Because desperate time calls for desperate measures. And then one day, my mother consented to me entering the convent. And that day was 8th of September, Mother Mary's birthday.
Yes.
And I was so touched, because a mother who would, birthdays, you would think you would gift your mother. But Mother Mary gifted me with the biggest gift I wanted, support from my parents to enter, right? And it was like that, actually almost every year, at a Marian feast, baby steps for my mother to accept my vocation would occur. Yeah, and my mother, who's not Catholic, would not have timed it on a Marian feast, I assure you. So my vocation journey is really made me feel the immense love of the two mothers, my biological mother as well as Mother Mary. Mother Mary herself was also, about the feminine genius, right? I think in the convent, I experienced kind of this kind of feminine nurturing that I didn't really experience elsewhere, just in my life. Not just Mother Mary was always portrayed like with the lily and kind of meek and fair, but like really the strength of a mother. The one who would be able to say fiat, the one who would be able to be there at the cross, the one who would be able to hold when someone said, this child, your child, will be the rise and fall of Israel. That kind of feminine genius, that kind of, the feminine and masculine we all need, but from just a patriarchal society, we're more masculine. So she really is a role model for us Good Shepherd sisters.
Can I ask, maybe both of you, what would you like to see, in the church? Or the role of women is so often discussed in the church. What would you like to see develop or grow, or what would you like to see along the way? So maybe, sister, start with you.
Would you like to go first?
Oh, okay. Shirley, okay. I mean, mothers in particular, and the church, you're very, very important. Because, our priests need to come from somewhere.
Yeah. Well...
And all our religious, anyway, for that matter.
Yeah, they just didn't drop.
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely.
And that's why actually, to me, it's kind of like a little bit of a, what do you call that? Oxymoron, in the sense that every time we talk about women, and it's like somehow they're supposed to be like the less important or the less capable and everything.
They shouldn't
else.
be.
But to me, is why are we comparing in the first place? And really have to stop thinking that women are less of. Because they're not. I mean, the fact that, they can carry a child and give birth and go through all that childbirth and everything else, right? I mean, I've even heard of men fainting when they see their wife, going through labor and all
Absolutely.
that. So you can imagine if the women faint, then the childbirth would have been damn difficult, right? So anyway, I think actually every one of us, I mean, we're all created unique and, in the image of God and all that, right? So whether it is a she or a he, there is always something that we are good at. So we should focus on that, and we are all capable of learning. So we can always learn new things. So whatever that we're good at, we really should just, in that sense, like keep on doing it and be better at it and find that passion in it as well. I mean, since God has given that talent, right? And every one of us, in a sense, contribute to this whole, world, big or small. So, there really should not be any age or gender restriction, actually.
Yeah.
When we talk about capabilities and things like that. So we should really, allow people to just shine in that sense. And for individuals, whatever it is, just give it a try. We never know what we are good at if we try. Until we try. And the more you try, the more you learn. And seriously, today I learned something. Tomorrow I wake up, I'll be a better person. Because I have already something.
Yeah.
Right? So, I think from a support-wise, the church itself really, whether it is kind of like from a physical, from clergy to lay people and all that, less judging, more acceptance, more encouragement. Yeah, that I think would be important. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, sister.
For us, International Women's Day, it's huge in our homes or in our schools, right? Because they are women, they are girls, and how do you stand up equal to men? Not doing the same things, we always think equality is let's compete, right? But like, what is your value? What is your value, and how do you see yourself? Because the truth is, a lot of this not good enough is an internalized message along the way of life for women. Just like you actually said, being compared and all that. Yeah, so it's to really empower them that Who are you? What does being a daughter of Christ mean? What does being, what is your inherent right as the heir of Christ, right? Yeah, and should I say this? Lots of times I feel like all the clericalism or the inequality are really also because of, how do you say, it is also supported by women unconsciously. You know, the way they bring their children up, or the way they would talk about the priest as you know, I mean, not because they have ill intentions, but unconsciously. Yeah, so it's for just women to be just a little more conscious. Yeah, just that little step. I think it's important. Yeah.
I think there's a difference between respect and putting somebody on the pedestal.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I think everyone needs to be respected and deserves respect, because we're all made in the image and likeness of God, right? And so He gives us that worthiness. And so, but it is, as you said, sister, sometimes it's cultural. Sometimes, the minute you see a man of the cloth, or for that matter, a religious habit, you do sort of put them on a pedestal. And this was the old-fashioned bringing up style, and it was actually it was out of respect. But sometimes when culture sets in, then that pedestal sometimes grows a little bit higher, and it becomes our problem because if we don't know how to manage it also, then our own expectations, if not met, also get dashed.
Exactly.
Right? So you're right. So how can we then, just let women know that the church is here for everybody, and the Holy Father says, without women, there is no church, really. And Our Lady is the biggest, the hugest model of, what church is really meant to be. Right? So how can we improve and really actually get ladies to really shine the way they should be shining? Just a thought, Shirley. Can we start it from the families?
I think it's really believing that in the first place, God created us for a purpose. Right? And if Mother Mary didn't say yes, there's no Jesus in that sense, right? So women are made to to bear children and to bring children into this world. So that itself means that we are important enough in the first place, right? So don't diminish ourselves.
Yes.
I think we need to be able to say that, in the first place, if God has created us, then there is a purpose in us living and surviving in this world, right? So then what is the best that we can then give back to God and to the church? So, I mean, that is kind of like my personal fundamental belief. So I'm just hoping that, women everywhere can think that we will make mistakes.
We all
right,
do.
in the journey of our life and all that. So, but it's important that we then just learn, right? Same mistake, don't repeat. I remember someone saying, if you keep on repeating the same mistake, actually it's a fault line that you have crossed, right? So, so it's the awareness that we are important enough, right? Not more or less important than men, but important enough. But so what is it that we will then be able to give back to this church in that sense? So that's all I can offer at this point. Yeah,
Sister, when you work with women and girls who are in difficult situations, the situations you meet them, how do you tell them that they're still loved, they are valued, they are, how do you approach it?
We always say it's so easy to hurt right? With one glare, with one stare, with one word. It's so hard to repair that love, right? And it's really the basic consistency, because I tell you, when children who should be loved by, are hurt by the people that they should be loved, so trust is very confusing for them. So a lot of behaviors can appear very testing, but it's how do we reparent, like how do we give them a different message that no matter what, you are loved. No matter how many times the lost sheep strays, the good shepherd would carry it in his arms and celebrate, no matter how many times. And that is not easy. Like you said, it's not perfect. Sometimes I do lose my cool as well because I'm human. And you'll be surprised the children can accept that. And they can sense your intention, though they will not tell you that, right? But they can sense who's there to work and pass the hours, who's there that really loves them, right? Yeah. So, the question that you asked, how can we really empower women? I think it starts from the small things, right? The small steps at home. I think I've seen my friends, where in the past, like my parents' generation, you kind of see a lot of the women have to work and juggle the family while the man works, right? But now I really see my friends, male and female, being more involved in caregiving and the messages they try to give their children. I think we shouldn't expect like leaps and bounds within a short time, but I do see the small changes personally. But as a church-wise, we do move really slowly. As a big institution, I mean, look at the gospel and like even our office. Women are either nameless, prostitutes, or virgins. That says a lot about how we value them, right? I mean, that says a lot. So systemically, an issue, but like I think everyone is really trying to put their baby steps. Trying to make a difference. Maybe in my household, if everyone tries to make a difference in my household, it will really proliferate, right? Yeah. So I really appreciate the work with families. Yeah.
And the same.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that how we can connect and collaborate.
Oh, there's a lot to be done.
Yes.
Wow, thank you so much, Sister Fiona and Shirley, for coming on to Catholic SG Radio today and really, that moment of empowerment and,
Indeed.
encouraging each other. I mean, that's something really beautiful that, I also personally hope that we can continue in our communities at home and in ministries also. Yep. So just a reminder, the Faith Perspective is broadcasted every alternate Tuesdays at 8:30 a.m. with our encore broadcast at 8 p.m. on the same day and 5 p.m. the following day. Alternatively, if you'd like to catch the podcast version of this episode, you can listen to our Catholic SG Radio app as well as on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Yeah, you can also catch this episode on and all our Catholic SG Radio talk programs on Catholic.sg YouTube channel.
Okay, so that leaves us only to say, once again, thank you to our guests and thank you very much to our dear sisters and brothers for tuning in. Don't forget, you can catch us every other week, but then, of course, we'll always bring you something hopefully interesting here on The Faith Perspective. Bye-bye now. Take care.